We're going to check in out in the Pacific Northwest with James Crepea, who is the beat reporter for the Oregon Ducks at the Oregonian. He's on your radio right now. James, really appreciate a few minutes of your time this afternoon. This is an interesting Oregon team. They are across the board a top 10 team. There are a lot of people that think that they are the team to beat in the Pac-12. Some don't necessarily agree with that. Let's just start there. When you look at this team, what do you see and what do you believe is true?
Well, I understand it's not unanimous that Oregon was the favorite, preseason favorite by most everybody, including Pac-12 voting media, to win the North Division and win the league again. Yes, USC and Utah each got some votes in that regard as well, and Arizona State in the South Division for that matter. But while not unanimous, it was awfully close. I'll say that. So. In full disclosure, in terms of the Pac-12's media voting, yes, I did vote for Oregon to win the North and win the league again. And that's just because I think they are the best team. Plain and simple. I think they're the most talented team. I think they're the best coached and coaching staff in the league. And combining talent and coaching and the like, I think they're the best team in this league. Now, that doesn't mean, not proclaiming that they go win every game necessarily, including obviously the Ohio State game in week 2. We're not getting to that point yet, but do I think they're the most talented team in the league? Yeah. That doesn't mean that they don't have some questions that they're facing either, though. There definitely are a few, but in terms of preseason, prognostications and picking league winners, division winners, all that good stuff, yeah. I think this team certainly has the talent and the capability to do that, for sure.
When I look at Mario Cristobal, there's part of me that still scratches my head and go, why did FIU get rid of him? Because this guy seems to have it. And, there are people, I'm sure you've heard it before, that inevitably at some point in the realm of history, Nick Saban is no longer going to be the coach of Alabama. That may be 45 years from now. Mario Cristobal may not still be even coaching at that time. But there are people who've said, if that ever happens, he's the guy that makes the most sense. What is it about Mario Cristobal that has made him the right fit at Oregon, that has allowed him to recruit with the level of success that he has, and kind of turn this into a year-after-year thing?
Well, I'll stick to the basis of your question and not necessarily get into projecting as to who Nick Saban's successor will be in the,
that's fair.
You say, in the indefinite future, because I haven't the foggiest in that at the moment for sure. And I'm sure, much like we've seen in college basketball with some great coaches who've retired recently, that Nick will have quite a bit of say in the matter when that day does arrive. Having said that, to your question of just what makes Mario so successful and accomplished on the recruiting trail, obviously that predates his time here at Oregon. That goes back to his time at Alabama in particular, when he was, National Recruiter of the Year. And if you look at the offensive linemen who were brought in to Alabama, dating back to, the early years of when Mario was there, and he was there in 2013. And you go back through, obviously he's been here at Oregon now for a few years, as a head coach and first as the offensive line coach and co-OC. Well, go back and take a look, guys, at just the players that he recruited to Alabama during that time. And then even after he left, some of those same players, and some of them, I believe there's still a couple who may still be around, but ultimately a lot of those offensive linemen who he helped bring in, and other positions as well, but mainly the O-line, ended up being not just future starters, future all-SEC players, future All-Americans, future Outland Trophy winners. So that's what it is it's we all hear and know, obviously, in the SEC, it goes without saying, you hear about coaches who are great recruiters. But sometimes you have the question whether they're position coach, a coordinator, or head coach. Are they great coaches? Are they great game coaches? Are they great strategists? Can they also win? Or is it really that they're great salesmen? And I think what Mario's been able to do, as a head coach in particular, is pair style and substance. For the reputation that Oregon has, particularly before he got here, of the uniforms and Nike and the facilities and all those things, which are still true. That's not the hallmark of Mario Cristobal or his program now. Doesn't mean that they don't have fancy uniforms or don't have a beautiful facility, but it's not what, is the first thing that comes to mind. It just isn't. It's now about toughness at the line of scrimmage because that's part of what Mario preaches. And when you have style and substance, when you're able to back up what you're selling by way of first of a vision of where the program can be and what success can be, and then you validate it by winning the Pac-12, back-to-back years, winning a Rose Bowl, being nationally relevant, being in the playoff conversation. Yes, not getting into it yet, but in the conversation early on in a coaching tenure. That's how you back it up. That's how it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy on the recruiting trail. Because if you're just a salesman but you don't back it up, you're probably not going to be long for the job very long. Not that job, at least. You'll be somewhere else. When you back it up with wins, well, then, like I say, then you can sustain success.
And, whether it was fair or not, Oregon at one point had the reputation for being a finesse team. I'm not sure that's an entirely fair characterization, but that characterization is long gone. I mean, you mentioned it a second ago, nastiness on the offensive line. They're nasty and they're tough. And I'm assuming that is the stamp, and I'm not using your words here, but the stamp that Mario Cristobal has been able to implement and kind of keep going, right?
Yeah, and that's it. And that's the bottom line is he wants to win at the line of scrimmage, not just because he's a former O-lineman and he played at Miami and, he's not trying to bring football back 30, 40 years. Hardly. That's because that's how you win. Tell me a national champion of the last 10, 15, 20 years of college football who was what? You would describe their offensive or defensive lines as tiny or unathletic or not dynamic or didn't protect the passer or didn't pave in the running game particularly well, whatever the case is. I mean, even bring it to the NFL level and say who won a Super Bowl who was like that. The only defense who could even make that claim in the NFL was the Colts with Manning a quarterback.
Yeah.
So who can win in either professional or college football at the highest levels without winning at the line of scrimmage? Nobody. It can't be done.
Just doesn't happen.
So to your point, it goes to not just because that's part of what Mario is in terms of his core identity, but I think it's kind of proven itself, and he's brought that. And there's a validity in what you were saying about not just Oregon's reputation previously, the Pac-12's reputation previously, and it still has to be changed a little bit out there. Look, this is not a conference that is producing, tons of All-American offensive linemen. It just isn't. And the few that there have been the last couple of years have been guys out of Oregon. And if you now go it's either 4 or 5 years. I think it's now 5, which the Outland Trophy brings in defensive linemen as well, because obviously Quinn Williams is in there. Mario Cristobal has either coached and or recruited the last, I believe it's 5 now. It's either 4 or 5. I think 5 Outland Trophy winners.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, and he's gonna and you better believe he wants to keep that streak going. Not finalists, winners. Yeah, that's going to be the core identity for as long as he's at Oregon. That will absolutely be a core pillar piece of identity. Strength on the offensive line and offensive tackles in particular. Strength on the interior defensive line, and of course, dynamic edge rushers as well.
And it will be on full display on Saturday, September 11th at 11 a.m. local time when Oregon travels to number 4 Ohio State. James, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your insight. Great catching up with you, and maybe we can check in down the line.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
That's James Crepea, covers the